Mark 6 and Luke 9, 1 to 17. Well, speaking of Jesus, we hear people in Nazareth say, "Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary?" Notice that Joseph isn't mentioned, so again, very strong tradition that Joseph has died by this time. Is this not the carpenter? The actual word there in Greek is tekton, and it means to build or to construct. So Jesus was a construction worker, a builder, probably a stonemason. The reason we get carpenter in tradition is because the first English versions of the Bible, of course, were translated in Britain, where they made houses out of wood. Well, in Israel, of course, they built out of stone. So the idea of a tekton would be a stonemason, probably. And that probably was his family business Joseph started. These are his brothers. Jesus was the brother of, it says, James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon. Or in Hebrew, this would have been a very traditional family in naming their sons after the tribes of Israel. We are never told who his sisters are, but there's early tradition. He has two sisters by the name of Miriam and Salome. Nothing in the Bible about that. We do learn in John 7, verse 5, a reading to come, that none of his family, except Mary, believed in Jesus. So Jesus was on his own when it came to explaining himself even to his own family. Well, our readings then tell us of Jesus sending out the 12, and we hear some surprising things. They are going to go to Israel. The story, of course, is that Jesus goes to his own first, John 1. His own will not receive him. His relationship with Gentiles does happen, but we notice they often happen as a result of something else. A woman reaches out and touches him, or he sits down for a drink at a well in Samaria and meets a woman. So the idea of Jesus going to Israel is part of the story that he is working with. But what we hear is rather shocking. They will not receive you, nor hear you. When that happens, shake the dust off your feet, Jesus tells his disciples. See if the household is unworthy. He calls them wolves who will attack the sheep. They will deliver up you to persecution, going back to our Matthew 10 story. Well, why? Why that strong anger of Jesus' own people? Again, this is Jew against Jew, and the idea that these Jews will be out to persecute fellow Jews really is surprising. Back in Luke 6, we read, "So they departed and went through the towns, preaching the gospel." So now we understand that what Jesus is giving is there is that word again, gospel or good news. Why would the good news be so offensive to his fellow Jews? Well, we know, based upon, again, the story, this gospel cannot be that Jesus dies for your sins, right? Because that hasn't happened yet. There's no prediction. This must be something else that is meant by the news here. And I think it's, again, right in the text. If we back up and look at the three texts in our synoptics that precede Jesus explaining the kind of anger that he's going to accompany or come upon, listen to these. Matthew 10:25. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more will they call those of his household? In other words, they believe that Jesus is attached to Satan. That's why they are against Jesus. Mark 6:7, and he called the 12 to himself and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them power over unclean spirits. He realizes, Jesus does, that item number 1 when it comes to giving the gospel to this group is to have power over unclean spirits. Also in Luke 9:1, same thing. Then he called his 12 disciples together and gave them power and authority over all demons. And then they go out. So what is behind this, I believe, is, again, we're right back to that same issue of which Elohim. They believed they were attached to Yahweh, and Jesus was attached to Satan or Beelzebub. But we hear Jesus now say, I did not come to bring peace. This is not a peaceful story, obviously, but a sword. I have come to bring a sword. And that is to cut between right and wrong and what is true and what is false. Whoever loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Who says that kind of thing? Again, it's just amazing how strong Jesus' words are. He who finds his life will lose it. He who loses his life for my sake will find it. What he means by those very strong statements is, and this is now Jesus speaking, what's actually true is that Israel is attached to Satan and that he is attached to Yahweh. So when we have these kinds of he who is not against me, or he who is not for me is against me, what we have is the actual description of this: you're either with me or against me. If you find your life in this storyline and worship Satan, you will lose it. If you love your father or mother more than me, implied they are leading you to misdirected worship, then you're not worthy of me. So all those kinds of statements are not just made out of self-grandeur ideas. They're made because of this issue of the gospel. Who is attached to whom? And in the end, again, where does the story of the Old Testament go? Whoever you are worshiping, you will go to their eternal home, as it were. So that's why we have this kind of statement the way we do. Do these people know they're attached to Satan and not God? C.S. Lewis once said, the more a man is in the devil's power, the less he would be aware of it, on the principle that a man is still fairly sober as long as he knows he is drunk. So Jesus is going to have to clarify for people who may not even be really aware of how strong Satan's power over them actually is. And of course he's doing that so that they can then change their worship to Yahweh.